Nation, you will not believe who we have here today. Author, activist, advocate, producer, businesswoman. She's beautiful, articulate, and oh so talented. Kiwan Fitch, President and CEO of Empowerment Corporation, LLC. Welcome, Kiwan.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
I really do appreciate you.
Thank you for being here. Yes. Kiwan, you are a busy lady. But I want to tell you, thank you for being here today to educate, enlighten, and empower families, people in our community about this issue that has hit home right here in our community, and that's domestic violence.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me. Taking the time. It is a very serious issue. It's a personal issue to me. And you just never know who's going to hear it and be able to change their lives. So I appreciate you doing what you're doing.
Yes, thank you. You know, let's just go ahead and get into the meat of things.
Okay.
And viewers, just to give you a statistical idea of how prevalent domestic violence is, I'm going to read to you some information that I ascertained from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And just listen to these numbers because they're pretty staggering. Every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is beaten or assaulted. Nearly 20 people per minute, guys, are abused by an intimate partner in the United States. And just to give you an idea of how big that is 10 million men and women per year. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been victims of physical violence by an intimate partner in their life. And when you think about the resources out there for people who are affected by domestic violence, it's the domestic violence hotline numbers. On a typical day, they receive more than 20,000 phone calls. Wow, that really touches your heart. 72% of all murder-suicides involve intimate partners. 94% of these victims, or these murder-suicides, are females. Kiwan, you know, sometimes people, they don't take children into consideration, but according to the National Coalition, 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year. And 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to this violence. That's staggering. Mm-hmm. But you know, South Carolina has been ranked number 1 for domestic violence in our nation. I mean, that's just crazy.
It is.
Why do you think South Carolina is number 1 on the list for domestic violence?
I'm sure that there are people who have very strong opinions about why that is. I'm sure that there's research and statistics that will probably speak to that. I did a little poll of my counterparts here in the South Carolina. First of all, I'm not from South Carolina. I was not born and raised here. I've lived in South Carolina, just August was 5 years. So I did not research enough before moving here. I moved here for many different reasons, but I certainly was surprised about being number 1. I knew that we were pretty much 50 when it comes to education, but I didn't know we were number 1 in terms of domestic violence. So why do I believe that is? I believe that intimate partners have a sense of, I want to call it belonging, ownership of women in particular. I found that when talking to young men about women and the people in their lives, and there's this sense of that the woman belongs to them. And usually, and statistics do say that when a woman wants to leave or is going to leave, that's when the actual death and violence actually really does occur. So when you are in an intimate relationship that is very volatile, probably from the beginning, South Carolina has a lot of poverty. South Carolina has a lot of racial issues and different things like that. We also have a lot of issues with people not being able to move ahead from their communities and their old, their thinking and family history and different things like that. This is the South.
Yes.
We stay in situations a little bit longer probably than someone in a different area because of lack of resources and a lack of abilities to kind of move ahead and maintain. It's a lot easier to get out and use public transportation and do all these other things when you're living in a bigger city that may have more resources because they have more people per capita and all that type of stuff. But it really goes back to the core of why would a woman here in the South feel that she needs to stay in this relationship when she tries to leave and you look at all your counterparts, they usually end up dead. They usually end up dead. And there's also, I just really was surprised to hear a lot about ownership of women.
So it seems like the reason why it's ranked number 1 in South Carolina is because there's a dependency there. You know, women need to be more dependent upon themselves instead of on that man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we don't do enough of empowering women to do for themselves. You know, it's a lot of family history of poverty here. It's a lot of cycle of abuse and cycle of poverty.
Yes.
So when you kind of play them all together, there's a lot of different statistics, not just with domestic violence. It kind of goes back to the same type of issues and the same type of thinking. So but it's still all hand in hand.
It all goes together.
It all goes together.
Yes.
So it's important that when we're looking at why is it that this person is so, you know, domestic violence is about power and control.
It is.
Why is this person really focusing on being controlling and kind of being physically assaultive to a person that they're supposed to love? Sometimes we don't do better because we don't know better, but also we're talking about years and years of violence.
So we need to change the cycles. There's a cycle there.
Oh,
and if you don't recognize the cycle, then it just goes on for generation to generation.
Absolutely.
Because domestic violence in some households, it is generational, unfortunately.
Absolutely. I mean, I can remember back, you know, and you never know how things that happen in a child's life will affect them later on.
Yes.
And, you know, I one of the things that I am is I can be very transparent. You know, my books are very specific to certain issues because if it's happened to me or someone I know, I certainly think that other women can learn from and appreciate someone else sharing their story. But I remember some of the things I heard my dad say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It didn't affect me. It continues to affect me. Just the nasty things that people say and do to each other and tear somebody else down. As a child in a household where you hear some of those things and how it plays into you later on, your esteem of yourself and the type of things that you go about doing, you wonder, where did that come from? Why did I feel like that? Why do I do that? And if you've never taken the time to think about it and really do the work that it takes, or have some sense of desire to do the work that it takes to figure out some of those things, you're going to not really get it,
Right.
you know, and that's how the cycle kind of continues.
Yes, because you have to first of all identify where the cycle came from.
Where
And when you recognize it in yourself, you can say, you know what? I think I'm doing the same thing that my mother did in her relationship. I remember when so-and-so would say these things to her or put their hand on her in this way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm accepting the same behavior that she did.
Absolutely.
And if you're a man, well, that's how my dad, you know, or my dad, that's how he treated his girlfriend or his wife. And,
Absolutely.
you know, he was very strong and he was like, this is my house and I'm the king of my house and I rule it and you guys have to follow my rules. So
Absolutely.
they think that's the status quo.
Absolutely. And it's sad, but it's the very truth.
Yeah.
It's just the truth.
Right.
And we don't think about the children that are listening.
No.
You know, my dad used to, and it's so funny because there's one particular phrase that I remember very well. And I think that I heard my dad say it. But you know what? I never did. My mom has repeated it so much to that, you know, your father said this, that I thought I heard it, but I didn't hear it. But I didn't know how it affected me. My mom had ingrown toenails. This is just so funny. But she had ingrown toenails. And as an adult, later on, now I'm in my 40s, and when I started having this ingrown toenail issue, it was kind of spooky, devastating, and it had nothing to do with the toenails. But my mom said that my dad said that he would know her feet in hell. And it was funny.
Yes. Yes.
But
yes.
as a child, hearing that so much,
Yes.
and knowing what she's gone through with her feet,
Mm-hmm.
and as a 43-year-old woman to have an ingrown toenail, that resonated with me like, oh my
yeah,
God.
it was like, I've heard this
But
before.
it wasn't, but you know, and I know because I know their history. I
Right.
know that wasn't a nice thing.
Right.
It wasn't like a
Right.
joke between two people. Like,
Right.
you know, it was mean.
Right.
It was really evil spirited.
Yes.
And it was something that resonated with her.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't even know how she passed that down to me.
Wow. Wow.
So the littlest of things that might have happened in a relationship that was not good,
Mm-hmm.
children pick that up.
Right.
And even 43 years old, I'm still have something from my childhood that resonates with me, that was passed,
So-
and it wasn't even
Yeah.
on purpose.
Right. So I would say that, you know, you have that awakening. When you're a child, you're so innocent. You believe everything. You're very vulnerable.
Mhm.
But as you get older and you gain wisdom and knowledge, which you really should,
Absolutely.
you awaken to certain behaviors and patterns that were in your household. When I say were in your household, not you specifically,
absolutely.
but that were in your household. And as an adult, you should be able to identify, you know what, that was inappropriate.
Absolutely.
You know what, he shouldn't have said that, or she shouldn't have done that.
Absolutely.
You know, and when you identify that within yourself, then you should say, you know what, I want to change it.
Absolutely.
Do you think they're doing enough in this state for domestic violence?
I will say that because of the numbers and because of the awareness of quite a few people,
Mm-hmm.
I can't say enough because I don't know, you don't see it yet. The numbers aren't moving and the numbers have been this
Right.
way for many, many
Right.
years. So I won't say enough, but I will say that there are things that are happening.
Okay.
I just joined a new coalition. I was just asked to become a part of it. Our wonderful Richland County Councilwoman, Julia Dixon, started a new coalition. And it's called Healthy Relationships Coalition.
Okay.
And it's so simple, but it's a coalition of very concerned people and who have, I guess, a history with the issue, who are coming together specifically to do something. And what's really cool about it is not only being in with it from the ground floor, but when we say the numbers are bad and we are looking at how can we fix it,
Yes.
we spend too much time talking about it and not enough time doing anything. And so our first meeting was just about a week or two ago, and one of the things that we came up with is that people need to start to talk about it. Domestic violence is very taboo,
Mm-hmm.
but as we start to talk about it, we're going to actually be creating what we're calling chats, and that's community healthy attitudes together. Communicating healthy attitudes together. We're going to have these chats, community-based conversations about domestic violence. Now, sometimes you got to dress it up with a pretty bow to get people to come out because
Yes.
people don't want to lecture. People don't want to have, if I'm in that situation, I'm not putting no black dot on my hand.
Right.
Did you see that? It was going on Facebook. It was something, if you needed help or whatever. I'm sorry. Law enforcement are abusers, and they're on Facebook. Many men are on Facebook who have, if you're about power and control, monitoring someone's social media is very much a part of that. If I am in an abusive relationship and I have this dot in my hand and my man sees it, I'm sorry. He's going to know exactly what that's all about.
It's an identifier.
It's an identifier.
It's
So,
an identifier.
certainly didn't pass that. But what I wanted to make sure that, as the part of the coalition that we're going to be doing is that we're creating these opportunities for people to come together and talk about healthy relationships.
Yes.
It's a conversation that needs to happen in households, but it's not always happening.
It's not, and it's because people, they have their own philosophy in regards to what's a healthy relationship and what the relationship should entail.
And you know what? That's fine. I think that everybody has their own, their own limits. What's healthy for them may not be healthy for me.
Exactly.
I don't like to be spoken to that way. That might be fine for her.
Mhm.
But in the same token, I think that even if you remain with your own personal identity, identifier within your relationship, you still need to talk about it.
Right.
Because your daughters may encounter something that's like that, but a little bit further.
And they're watching your behaviors whether you realize it or not.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's so important as women that we don't allow ourselves to be in abusive relationships. Now, when you say abusive relationships, we're not just talking about physical abuse. We're
Absolutely.
also speaking about mental abuse, and that comes from verbal abuse.
Absolutely. I just posted an article, and one of my girlfriends had inboxed me, and she was so grateful that I did. And it was about coercion and control.
Mm-hmm.
That was my story. My ex-husband, was a big guy, 265, big python arms, as he called them, power lifted 500 pounds for
Wow.
fun. He was that good look.
Intimidation. He had that.
He didn't have to put his hands on me for me to know that he could,
Yes.
and he would, and
Yes.
he would hurt me.
Yes.
So we didn't have that type of violent relationship in terms of physical violence. But he would say some things that, would just totally tear you down.
Yes.
He would see you sitting in your car that's not starting at 20 degrees outside with your baby inside, and he'd get in his car and keep going.
Wow.
You don't have to put your hands on someone to be abusive
No,
to
you
them.
don't. No.
So it's all about the power and control. But it's really
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. It's about the power and control, but also we talked about people not wanting to be identified as being in abusive relationships. That's part of something that your coalition was doing. So how do you identify, maybe at the workplace or a family member, they have certain characteristics and traits that they display that shows there's something that's going on with this individual.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you identify a person that may be going through something where you might want to pull them aside privately and say, you know what, I noticed some changes. What's going on? How would you identify that individual, that man or woman? Because men are also abused. We haven't talked on that or touched on that.
I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah.
Let me say this, that for me personally, and I've been in social services for the last 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked in this field, which means that I work with lots of women.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when you're in these different positions, it's heavily populated with women. And throughout the years, I've had many different situations, from telling somebody you're pregnant to identifying that there were some things going on in the household that may not have been the best situations for them. And what I'll say is that there's definitely changes in personality.
Okay.
People are a lot quieter. People are, maybe not their normal chatty self.
Mm-hmm.
I notice when your makeup is a little bit heavier. You're taking off a little bit more days than you usually do.
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself, when I would take off, I would not be at work, and someone would call.
Okay.
That just, you
was
don't
trouble.
do that.
Right.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
Or just making sure that your employer knows that if someone calls for me, please just don't give them any information
on you. Right.
Employees don't know that.
Right.
I had a supervisor that told my ex-husband that I wasn't home, wasn't at the office one
Wow.
time. And it was so funny because he worked 3 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
So I would leave the house
Mm-hmm.
and go upstairs to my mom's because nobody was there.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 3 o'clock, I come back downstairs. And I guess, I don't know how, what happened that, this
Mm-hmm.
one particular day. But what I'm saying is that as a woman who's aware and in the workplace, how do you be open to allow someone to be able to share if they want to share?
Right.
You have got to be open, period.
And there's a privacy there. So even if you go to your supervisor and you say, there's something that has been affecting my work, there's something that has
And
been...
legally, they're supposed to protect you.
Exactly.
Because when I ended up having to go finally get a restraining order, I had to put my workplace in there, and they were now protected under that, so that if he did come there, or we had a situation that could have been really detrimental to my career at that time.
Right.
So, and my manager, she said to me, she says, well, we're not going to pursue an issue with you because we are named in the restraining order,
Mm-hmm.
and we understand what you're telling us is what had happened. But had that not happened, I could have been fired.
Wow. So you have to have that open and honest
You have to have
dialogue
the
with her
open and
employer.
honest dialogue.
Yeah, with the understanding you will be protected.
Absolutely. But also, you know, as women, and this is why your mission for Happy People is so awesome, is that we have to stop being so catty.
Yes.
You never know what your coworker is going through. You don't know what her home situation is. This may be her only outlet.
Yes.
You know, some people deal with things differently. I call it the kick the dog. Dad is abusive to mom is abusive to kids are abusive to the dog.
Yes.
Somebody has to have an outlet to take it out on.
Yes.
You know, but the young lady who thanked me for sharing the article about coercion and control, when I was leaving New Jersey, I'll never forget one of my going away parties. I did like a luncheon from the girls who were closest to me. And I didn't tell them to do this, but they just started doing this. The rain kind of moved us inside. And it was just this really beautiful picture of everyone. And we were in my mom's dining room, and she began to share how during one of the most difficult periods of her life, I was not judgmental. I just supported her and stayed with her and was there for her without judgment. And that is key. When you're in the process of doing it, you don't know that you're just doing it. And that's just me. I'm just going to get in there. I'm just going to do. But the key is when a woman is ready to leave, she will leave. But many women exhaust their intimate people around them. They exhaust their family. They exhaust their resources because so often they don't go.
And that's because of, they fight, they make up. They call the police come out, he gets arrested or she gets arrested, thrown into jail, okay, she didn't press charges, he didn't press charges, okay, now they're back in the same environment. So it's a cycle, and families get worn out, they get fatigued, and they're like, you know what, you're not going to leave.
Yeah. And you know what, and it's so funny because the South is a great place to kind of come to from other places. See, so if you have your cousin, sister, whoever in another state, usually the first place that they'll think of coming, South is home.
Yeah, it's home.
So here is home. So you done called and found this girl a job. You might have all these different things that you've done, and then she doesn't follow through. I understand that. But if you have any love for this person, please take the time to just be non-judgmental.
And don't give up.
And don't give up.
Don't give up.
And wait it out.
Yes.
Just wait it out.
Yes.
It doesn't always end great, but a lot of times it does.
And those are the happy moments.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you this because we didn't touch on it. Because when a person is going through a lot of stress and tribulation in their life, they have to have a coping mechanism as well. Have you noticed any substance abuse with those who are victims or even survivors? I went through all of this and, maybe I had to resort to this substance to help me deal with it. And maybe I am a survivor and I have these flashbacks and I have to resort to something. I mean, like we talked about that out. Have you noticed any substance abuses with those who are victims?
I think that I haven't noticed any major abuses. I think that what I've more so seen than anything is that the abuses that occurred in a young lady's life before she got with an abuser. Okay?
Yes.
He was just kind of the icing on the cake. There were some traumas. There was some incest. There was some sexual assault, sexual abuse within the childhood.
Wow.
One of the things that we don't always do is we don't take a look at what makes it okay for this person to treat me this way. That's where the work needs to be done. What makes it okay for me to allow this person to treat me this way? There has to be something going on inside of me that says that this is all right. We don't do enough cognitive behavior therapy.
we don't, and we don't see where it stems from. But with some women, it may stem from their mothers. from that old philosophy and that old style thinking when it comes to a man and a woman in the relationship, that he is the head of the household. He is the final decision maker. Whatever he says, that's what you're to go by, because he is, after all, providing a roof for you. He's providing clothing, shelter, whatever your necessities are in life. This man is providing it.
Yes.
So whatever he says, that's what you're supposed to do. And then you think about, since Southeast a Christian, this is the Bible Belt.
This is the Bible Belt. Yes. It's so funny that you say that, because they're supposed to be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
We're finding that a lot of women who are in these abusive relationships are in relationships where they're the breadwinner.
Yes.
He's not the one who's providing.
Well,
he's the one who's controlling.
So why? Why would the woman who is the breadwinner allow the man to control her, manipulate her, and abuse her?
The best answer that I can give you is the same answer I had to figure out for myself, because I let my ex-husband rule my household from the jailhouse.
Wow.
Yes, I was a student. I was in college. If he said no or don't or whatever, when you have certain less than perfect esteem about yourself, when you do not feel that you are worthy of better or more, when you don't feel good about yourself, when you feel that this is pretty much as good as I'm going to get, that I am unlovable, but he does love me. Esteem and love of self, and feeling like you won't be loved, and someone is telling you that they love you, and showing it in such sick ways, but it's resonating. It works. If you've never had flowers sent to you, but he manages to send flowers. If you've never had love letters when people are pouring out these beautiful words to you, and it resonates in your spirit and kind of fills that area, void, whatever within you.
Yeah, it makes you feel like, wow, he really loves me.
When they use words like, well, breaking up is just not an option, whatever it is, we're going to deal. Everything that is logical that you want within a relationship. And to be honest with you, while I was going through it, I said, this is the best relationship ever. I see him when I want to see him.
Yeah, you did see him whenever you want to see him.
Right, like, I want to see him, but I have to. I was able to be in a relationship that was not sexual.
Right.
And as a young woman, and it was like, he wasn't trying to just get me in the bed all the time.
Right.
Because we didn't have that.
Right.
It was just, and he can just love on me and tell me how wonderful I was, and all of these sick things.
Wow. Yeah.
All of that kind of went into, justifying for myself, because I was good. Everybody in my family was like, is she crazy?
Because you were believing that in that moment, those moments, he was giving you
exactly what I needed. Exactly what I needed. And the really crazy part is that when he came out, I got 2 babies in 2 years. Yeah, do that.
Okay, make up some time.
Yeah, 17 months apart. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And had to use fertility.
Oh,
yeah, it didn't even turn on when I wanted it to turn on. Yeah. Like, so it was like, okay, so you really gonna be here. Like, it's like, do it on this day, this day, this day.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, so this is totally planned.
Well, you had a little fun in there.
Oh, yeah, it was totally planned, But when it comes down to it, the words were true. I believe that those were the things that, wanted. But if you are who you are, even though those are the things that you say you want, it doesn't mean that you want it then.
Right.
And it certainly doesn't mean that you want it with me. And it certainly doesn't mean that you're truly honest about whether or not that's really what you want. You might like that street lifestyle as much as you say you don't want it.
Exactly. So when did your awakening occur, when you realized, okay, I'm in this relationship that's unique only to me because it belongs to me, and, there is some psychological abuse here, and when he got out, you decided, you had the children and everything, and you realized, what, this is not really what Kiwan wants.
It was...
Kiwan deserves better.
It was that I deserved better. I knew I needed to be very careful about how I ended it. When I realized, and this goes back to childhood, when I realized that this man does not like me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
He never called me ugly,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that that's what he thought. He never used the words, but I believe that's what he thought.
Wow.
When you have issues with how you look,
Mm-hmm.
and someone has issues with how you look, because I didn't look like this.
Very beautiful, so.
There was something that happened where I just said, I don't have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was. And when we decided to separate,
Mm-hmm.
I let this man live in my home for months and pay no bills so that he could save his money to me.
Wow.
Because I am that chick. I can do it, and I can do it with you right here.
And I'm going to show you I can do it. And once you get your money saved up, there's the door.
But I also knew that him being there,
Mm-hmm.
I was still safe.
Safe from what?
Safe from physical harm,
Okay.
okay? Because in a sense, he still needed me. And right before he left, I tried to get a restraining order because it had been building up so bad. And I remember feeling and going to the court and feeling like, when the judge told me the moderator or someone that, before the judge tells me no, like he hasn't done anything.
Right, it's right there. Right.
And I'm like, okay, but you're not understanding
Mm-hmm.
that statistically when a woman leaves, once he leaves, that's when I'm not safe.
Exactly.
So then I went to the judge and who's like, why are you up here? And no, just like I said, he flipped one day. He had gone and hadn't even been a week.
Mm-hmm.
Right before he left, it's a couple days before, he walked out of my house on the phone and he goes outside and I'm watching and he's reading off my plate number to someone on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so is he going to have me killed or what?
Wow.
But he's giving someone on the phone my license plate number. And when I confronted him and asked him about it, of course, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Then I went to church on a Wednesday after work.
Mm-hmm.
And my boys were picked up by the grandfather, brought to the house. My mom, this is Jersey, so we had two family houses. I lived downstairs, they lived upstairs, right? So I remember my phone just started going off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, finally, I listened to these voicemails, and my baby sister was like, in hysterics. I don't think you should come home.
Mm-hmm.
He's out here, he's yelling and screaming, and we called the police.
Wow.
Like, they didn't want me to come home into the situation while it was very volatile. I had many messages from him, where are you, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
My neighbors had already been telling me that he'd been riding through the block, they'd seen him and everything. And so I remember going straight to the precinct, and it was an angel. It was actually an elementary friend of mine, school
Mm-hmm.
friend of mine who was a cop, who ushered me through and got me the restraining order.
Mm-hmm.
I'm standing there in the precinct when the cops who had come were just like, yeah, we told him to go. Like, no big deal.
Wow.
He left
Right.
because I wasn't there. That's why I came
That's why
here.
you left. And you came to a place that you knew was safe.
Right. And I believe also that if Al was not there, another officer probably would not have taken me serious.
Right.
Would not
Right.
have gotten a judge on the phone
Right.
and got me temporary restraining order. So all that I use my story to help other women. No, we weren't kicked down, not going to drag them out. But when you are in a situation where you are not being loved as the beautiful queen you are,
Right.
there's no reason for you to stay.
And that's the recognition that women have to recognize that they are the beautiful queen. But let me ask you this: your experiences, is that what led up to the creation of your organization? You know, the Empowerment Corporation LLC. Tell us about your organization and how, based on your experiences, do you help women in the community?
That was the catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we separated. And finally was able to, the last time he saw me, I had cut off my hair.
Mm-hmm.
My hair was like this short. And I had been wearing braids and weaves and all kinds of stuff. I had been a hairstylist and everything. But it was so funny because he looked like, what are you doing? And that was the beginning of my transformation.
Okay.
To getting to where I liked me, let alone forget about love. Like I needed to even like me. And after that is when I started with my Sister's Keeper, which was my first organization in New Jersey. When I moved here, I said, okay, well, I'd started Confessions of a Welfare Mom, working with women in transition from welfare, that kind of thing. And so domestic violence survivor basically came out of wanting to allow women to speak of their experience with domestic violence and get them to share their story in an unfiltered way. Say what you need to say, put it out there, all different kinds of abuse, all different types of situations, but also to say to other women, I survived. Look at me now, I survived. To give other women hope. So my books are anthologies. They're really about women sharing, women coming together to say, this is my story.
Yes. And I want to encourage our viewers to really pick up this book, Confessions of a Domestic Violence Survivor, because a lot of times we think that we're in a situation by ourselves and we don't realize that we have resources. We have a whole community that's behind us, supporting us. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad that you brought this book, Kiwan, so that everyone can see it. And we'll talk about how people can follow you and pick up your book.
Awesome.
But what I want to talk about is your latest and greatest endeavor, and that is on November the 7th. You know, you have a theatrical production taking place at 2768 Decker Boulevard. It's entitled Finding the Hope in the Struggle, the Domestic Violence Edition. And what I would like to know, and the viewers, I'm sure they would like to know, is, okay, you wrote this book, this beautiful book about surviving domestic violence, but you felt like, you know what, this book is good, women are benefiting from it, but I need to take it a step further. I need to broaden this platform. Mm-hmm. I really need to let people know how important this issue is. And you created this theatrical production. I mean, how did you put it all together to say, I got to continue this platform?
You know what? This is nothing but God. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've never desired to be a producer of anything theater-wise. This was not something that I had any clue would be where it is today. Mm-hmm. I didn't know. You know, sometimes you stumble into your destiny.
Yes.
The books were straight from God. I remember I was at the governor's conference in New Jersey. I think it was April, May 2010, something like that, when I decided to do Confessions of a Welfare Mom. Mm-hmm. And it was really just that. It was like I came back and I was like, we're doing a book. Mm-hmm. Of course, they just thought it was an assignment. Mm-hmm. And it kind of went from there. Mm-hmm. When I put it together, I knew that I wanted it on the stage. Mm-hmm. I wanted to model it after the vagina monologues. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it was just going to be this monologue style, you know, different women kind of taking the stage and kind of sharing their stories that kind of way, which would really model my books. But as I've co-produced it twice already down in Louisiana.
Wow.
Once in Baton Rouge, once in actually New Orleans. With two different organizations, and it went really phenomenal. And so last year I did another Finding Hope in the Struggle, based on Confessions of a Welfare Mom. And it was really more monologues. It was 10 individual monologues, and it gave very different scripted, performed by real actors, you know, experiences, you know, in terms of poverty and that kind of thing. I'll send you a clip of that. But then when going about doing this particular issue, I want to educate. I want people to talk about it. I can't educate if we don't talk.
Right.
We can't get a dialogue going, then we stay stuck.
Right.
You know, I need to hear from you, you need to hear from me. So I designed November 7th, and it's probably a lot more than what people, you know, could ever want
Yes.
in terms of an event. But we're going to actually start out the day at 11 a.m. with a discussion.
Okay.
You know, the teacher in me, you know, we can't have an event where we're entertaining, I call it edutainment. We're educating and entertaining about domestic violence without having an opportunity to have a discussion. So at 11 o'clock, we're going to have a discussion. And then at 12:30, you know, we're going to have lunch and the show is going to start. I have actual seasoned and pretty cool and beautiful cast.
I know. I got a
They
chance
are
to see
so-
her cast members. I mean,
They
Pamela
are pretty
Williams.
people.
you know, Miss Connor Frierson,
Yes.
Melody Bailey Williams. I mean, from all areas.
Yeah.
Corey John.
It's pretty cool. They are beautiful people, and I've been blessed. I have a creative director that has really been extremely helpful for me with getting a lot of the writing done, with the scripts and different things like that, rehearsing with cast members and what have you. But these guys have been working hard, and we're going to bring an awesome show. People ask me, like it sounds so depressing, like.
Yes.
We're just going to be, like, it's going to be, a play about a woman being abused. Totally not what this is going to be. First of all, we do cover every area of abuse that we, and in different areas. We do have a team who's doing a monologue. We also have a man who's doing a monologue specifically, which is, men are abused and by women. We also have a scene where there are actually two sisters who are talking about the situation with their parents.
Wow.
And one of the parents is actually deceased. We also have a 3-person skit, which is really going to be fun to watch. And when I told him that his wardrobe is like where the white tanks top, that we call wife beaters.
Yes.
So we're doing the stereotypes as well as, we're attacking all of that stuff. And there's economic abuse. There is cyber issues. Facebook is a huge issue in a lot of relationships.
Yes.
So we touch on that. But the hope in this show that I'm really, one of the scenes that I'm really, really proud of is there's two that I'm really proud of. One is my story is going to be on the stage.
Wow.
And Kiwan, we call her Kiki, is going to be performing me. And she performed me last time in Confessions of a Welfare Mom. And I think she just does me really awesome. If I was an actress, I would be here. She would be
Yes, she would play.
Yeah. So, but also my last scene of the show, as you can see, is there's 3 young men in the cast, 2 of which are my boys.
Okay.
And I want to leave with, when people say domestic violence, how it affects women, I think we don't do enough talking to our young men.
Right.
I'm a mom. I'm a single mom. I have 3 boys and 2 grandsons. I'm surrounded by men. But my work has always been with women.
Right.
And so people say, well, like, why don't you do stuff? And I don't necessarily do young girls. Like, that's not my area. That's not my passion. But I do work with women in transition, and I also want to do more for moms who are raising young men. I believe that the hope in this thing is that we educate our young men to treat our women better.
And that's what you're hoping that the young men in the audience take home with them when they leave. You know what? I need to do better by my lady friend, or I need to do better than for my wife or my
Absolutely.
girlfriend.
Absolutely.
What do you hope that victims or survivors take home when they leave your event? What message are you trying to send?
There's
them
a few messages, but one of the things is that you are a survivor. You can survive. You can come out and have a very productive, full life, but it's going to take some work. I think that people think everything is going to be easy, and I don't know why, because it's just not. Real life is just not.
Real life is challenging.
It's very much challenging, but I want people to leave with that. There is hope. There is hope. As a parent of a young man, who wants to know that their child, men who are abusive, I know their moms must grieve.
Yes.
And that's an area, something that we never talk about or look at. As a mother of a child, a man who has killed his wife or has been abusive to his wife, that woman, that mom must grieve for that.
Wow.
And that's not something that we talk about. We don't raise our young men to be abusive to women. And for it to happen, it has to grieve that woman and that family. And my hope is that we will do better in terms of educating our young men and getting them in places where they are able to freely talk and understand and see and model healthy relationships.
That is a powerful message. And you spoke it very well because, again, we don't focus enough on the men. And they need to receive that message and how to treat women, Let me ask you this. Where can tickets be purchased? I want a ticket. I want to come. So where do I purchase my ticket and how much are tickets?
The tickets are $30. And I have I've had people say that they thought that was too much. And I'm sorry, Anthony Hamilton was sold out last night, and people did not even get a meal, and they paid more than $30.
Right.
Okay? $30 not only gets you a discussion, but it also gets you a great show, and it also gets you a buffet lunch.
Okay.
And we have a pretty awesome menu. I'm very excited about the menu. But the tickets are only $30. If you are a student, a child student, as in high school, elementary school, middle school, the ticket's only $15.
Okay.
And we are selling the tickets. My cast has tickets. There's a phone number on the flyer, 803-609-9621. They can call. I will get them a ticket. If they want to purchase online, they certainly can. They can go to Finding Hope, the DB edition, .eventbrite.com, so they can get them there. If you go into Finding Hope on Facebook or Google it, it will come up. If you put Finding Hope in the Struggle, the Eventbrite will come up. You can just Google Finding Hope in the Struggle, and it will come up. The Eventbrite immediately. It's first. It's been first. It's been
yes.
And you can purchase your ticket that way. And if you are a woman who has some domestic violence history, and you want to come because you want to be in and you're not able to get a ticket, please call me. Please, please, please call me. If you want to come, if you need to bring your daughter or your niece or your cousin because you think this is something that she might need to hear because of something that may be going on or you suspect is going on in her life, please call me. Do not let the ticket price keep you from this event. It's so much more than just an event. It is an opportunity to change a life. And I don't want people to, especially women, to not come because they don't have the $30. We'll figure it out. We'll work it out. You need to call me. You have not because you asked not.
Right. And I just want to tell Happy People Nation viewers that, in view of the fact that South Carolina is ranked #1 in the nation for domestic violence, we really need to come out and support this event. We need to support Kiwan and her endeavors to take a bite out of domestic violence in our communities. And again, this production is November 7th. It starts at 11 o'clock with a discussion. Tickets are $30. That allows you to be a part of the discussion. You also get a beautiful buffet lunch, and also it'll get you in the show. It's located at 2768 Decker Boulevard. And again, Kiwan said that if you have problems with the price of the ticket and you are a survivor, you feel like it's very important for someone that you love or who has been experiencing this to be in attendance, then call 803-609-6221, and they will work.
9621.
Oh, excuse me, 9621. let me say the number again, 803-609-9621. And this information will be posted on Happy People Nonprofit so that you can have the number and the web address. But the important thing is that we come out, we support the victims, we support the survivors. We let them know that they're not alone. We let them know that their community is here. There are people who are behind them, who want to see them successful in their endeavors and getting out of that relationship and having a successful life. Kiwan, is there anything else that you would like to add for our viewers today?
Please come out.
Come
out. I want you to come out. The Empowerment Club is working on a variety of different things. We're going to be showcasing a few different things. We're going to be doing a hotline number so that I'll be able to connect with women all over for support and that kind of thing. That's going to be available at the event. You also get to meet people who are actively working in this area. So you want to be able to share your story, you certainly can. But also, it's an afternoon of fun. It's 12:30, it's 11 o'clock. It's early. You can still get your Saturday done. But I want people to know that we're here to educate and entertain, but we want to empower you to do better and be better.
Yes, come on out. Thank you so much, Kiwan, for being a part of Happy People Nation. I want to give you a hug.
Thank you.
And I want to tell the viewers again, please come out. Support this lady. She is working very, very hard to make sure that our ladies are safe, educated, by means of education, enlightenment, and empowerment. Kiwan Fitch, President and CEO of the Empowerment Corporation, LLC.
Thank you.
Thank you.